And we are back. You guys remember a couple days ago, we talked about the Vegas odds for Oklahoma to get to the SEC championship game and talked about a couple schools that were shockingly ahead of Oklahoma. I guess the experts in Vegas, they just have something against it, which means it's Oklahoma versus the world. But I gave you guys my prediction, said I think Oklahoma is going to go 10-2 next season. Obviously, I think the summer and the fall could potentially change that once the players get for fall camp and practice with each other and create more chemistry in the summer. But today I'm joined by Jay with Unfair Sports. We're going to break down this schedule a little bit, and I believe he's going to give us his way too early prediction as well. So, Jay, how are you doing?
Pretty good, PG. Thanks for having me as usual. I've done a couple of these, and I'm ready to keep doing them until we get right there in August, so we can get that fall prediction, which is really the one that matters. But this one is always fun because now we can talk about post spring and what we really think about that.
I've really been waiting to do it. And I wanted to do one in March. The reason why I didn't was because I wanted the transfer portal to kind of wrap up. I wanted to see what Oklahoma would go out there and do and what they look like in a spring game. And I'm going to tell you, I originally had Oklahoma in my mind win 8 to 9 games, and I've bumped them all the way up to 10 at minimum with the acquisitions that they made on the defensive line with Dominic Williams. And then I think the Branson Hickman acquisition at center is probably the biggest acquisition you've had this offseason, because that might have been the biggest position of need, probably the most important on the offensive side of the ball. So talking about some of this offseason stuff that's happened for Oklahoma with the transfer portal and what you've seen in the spring game, I want to kind of dive into the schedule a little bit. And I want to look at Oklahoma here. They got Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and then you've got Auburn, LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri. I'm under the impression Oklahoma's going to go and they're going to defend home field advantage, and obviously they'll probably win their 3 out of conference games. So that's going to give them probably 4 wins there with those home field games, including the Texas one that's we're home team, but it's in the Red River. So what's your thoughts around the schedule, and kind of just walk me through game by game what you think is going to happen?
So yeah, as you mentioned, first you start the season off with, the non-conference schedule. Houston and Tulane are both pretty depleted. We're seeing a bunch of players going in and out of the portal. I don't know what that looks like, but at the same time, they also have new coaches, right? Temple is Temple's Friday night game specifically for, exposure into the SEC, which I'm actually kind of excited about. I think it'd be fun to play them at night. First game in the SEC, in the conference itself. And the weather is going to be a hell of a lot more optimal at 6 and 7 p.m. than it is at 11 or 12 o'clock, right? Because once you start getting those drinks in your system, that heat is just going to be turned up. But I say first 3 games, of course, should be wins. That will be everybody getting themselves warmed up, chemistry getting in place, players, making the magic happen. But then you get into the schedule, right? We have the teams here. You got Tennessee first, and that's a home. I agree with you here. I think every home game's a win this year. So that gets you to 7 wins already. Home. The question is how many road games can the Sooners steal, right? I look at Missouri. I think Brady Cook's, okay, right? I think he's solid. I think he's a solid college quarterback. He was exposed against some of the better defenses in the SEC. And I think we'll have a top 3 defense in the SEC, right? Easily top 3, and I don't even think we're going to be 3. So I think that Missouri game, we should be able to go there healthy. We should be able to take them out. We got Maine as well. Maine's another game. So actually that's 8 wins if you include all the home games. So that's 8 wins. That even goes over the Vegas number already. Ole Miss, I think, is going to be a challenge just because it's Lane Kiffin. He does a really good job of making things difficult for people. And I think that their acquisitions in the transfer portal were not bad at all, right? I think they've got some players that could probably produce. The question is what does the development look like and what does the scheme look like on the defensive side? Pete Golding now has some weapons. I mean, if you ask Alabama fan, they'll tell you, yeah, Jay, don't really count on that. But I think that Ole Miss will be a fun one. I'm thinking that one probably is going to be one of the more challenging games. I can mark that as a loss, just because I just think it'll be a challenge going to the Grove, even though I think Oklahoma can win it. I honestly think that every game on the away schedule is a toss-up. LSU, I mark that as a win. Like, I haven't seen their defense was atrocious last year. Nothing about them tells me it's any better, right? And then you got Nussmeier as the quarterback. He's new. We saw a little bit of him last year, but everybody's still asking the question, is he going to be better than Jaden Daniels, even though some people thought he had a higher ceiling? He won the Heisman, right? Jaden did. So you got a lot of questions there. But I think Oklahoma beats LSU. I think that they can scheme up good enough and actually beat LSU at Death Valley to lead them to the SEC championship game. And I think the Auburn game, because everybody talks about how cursed Auburn is and how weird things happen. Weird things happen to Alabama. 4-letter acronym schools go there and win on a regular basis. I think we could win this one as Hugh Freeze is still trying to figure out his team. I give Hugh Freeze another year, maybe 2, to clean up things at Auburn. Then they'll be potentially a threat. Now, the question is, will Auburn give him the time? So, won't be honest, all I see really is one loss on this schedule. And I think it's really toss-up games. If we want to say 2, I could say Texas and Ole Miss are both your toss-up games. But Texas, when you look at all the players they lost a lot more than people recognize when you go look at the actual roster, right? They're replacing some folks. I mean, their secondary is becoming they got a lot of dudes in the secondary leaving, right? Now, I mean, I think one of them was a starter. Well, Brooks was technically considered a starter, but I don't know what that plays out to be. But I think that there's probably 2 toss-up games in here between Ole Miss and Texas. I think Oklahoma can win the rest of them.
Yeah, now, my thought process here was Tennessee comes into town, and I believe the edge has got to be for Oklahoma on defense there. I think they're going to have a better defense overall. And mainly I say that because it's going to be Jackson Arnold and Nico's, I think, first game in the SEC play for Jackson Arnold. And they're both sophomore quarterbacks. I don't know if Nico got redshirted, but I'm going to say they're sophomore quarterbacks, second year. So I'd only give Oklahoma the edge there because of defense. The Ole Miss game, the reason why I consider that one a loss is I love the acquisitions that Ole Miss made. And I do understand they lost Judkins in the portal, but I think their defense got at least 5 times stronger, especially with Walter Nolan in the trenches. I think Walter Nolan is going to eat out there. Now, I did say this, and this is something I want you to take into consideration. I believe the SEC and ESPN will try to give Oklahoma and Texas a pretty hard schedule in terms of what time they play these games, right? Traditional times that you would see these teams thrive at home. So I said Auburn, I'd say 2:30, Ole Miss 5-6 o'clock, and then I'd say that LSU game prime time, baby, 7:30 p.m., 7:30, and that's why I'm like, I know we don't know what LSU's defense is going to look like, but I know offensively they're going to be pretty good. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier is a really good quarterback. I am curious to see what kind of weapons they're going to have for him at the receiver. But defensively, that's the biggest question. So if they're able to figure that out, if we have to play them at 7 o'clock in Death Valley, I don't know if OU's walking out of that one.
I don't think that. See, it's going to be a challenge playing in Death Valley at night. It is 100% going to be. I'm just not sold on LSU yet, right? I need Nussmeier to show me something. And I just need him to show me something against true competition. Now, granted, I feel the same way about Jackson Arnold. I think Jackson Arnold has one of the higher ceilings out there. We've seen what he did in camps to get himself to being a 5-star plus player, as well as everything that you needed to see out of a recruit, to end up being one of the top quarterbacks in his class, right? So he's given us some of that stuff, but I still need to see the end game fully, right? Against Arizona, when he calmed down, he was cooking them. Unfortunately, 2 potential touchdowns that was going to come from him, we fumbled, right? We had fumbles right there in the red zone. So everything around him appears to be, let's put it like this. Who's that? Neighbors left LSU. Mm-hmm. That's a huge loss at wide receiver, right? What's the returning production look like at wide receiver for LSU? For Oklahoma, they lost Drake Stoops. The biggest weapon was Nick Anderson. He's back. Andrew Anthony gets his, so far it seems like he's getting to the good point of health because I don't see him walking around with a brace on. That was your top wide receiver last season, right? Him, Nick Anderson. Jaden Gibson had his 4 touchdowns to go along with Nick's 10 touchdowns, right? Then you add Deion Burks, who we know is going to be a star. He was really good at Purdue. Now he's got a quarterback that's going to air it out constantly. That's the thing I think helps Jackson Arnold is that we know his supporting class is going to be really good. And he's a mobile quarterback. He can move. Dude's got some wheels, especially for the collegiate arena, right? If you saw Baker Mayfield running around the way he did, Jackson Arnold could do that a lot faster in comparison. So my anticipation is he makes the right decisions. He's going to run. I need to see Nussmeier do something similar. Once we see Nussmeier do something similar, then I think I could be sold on what he is for the future. But I got to see more of him play.
Now, what's your thoughts on Missouri here? Because I was talking to Hank about it in the chat yesterday, and then we moved over to the Discord. But Missouri has won or had 2 10-win seasons back to back, one in 07 and 08, another one in 2012 and 2013, which, of course, that 2012 and 2013 season was in the NFL or in the SEC.
Yep.
And so I look at it and I go, Missouri had a pretty good year last year. I think they did run into a little bit of luck with Ohio State at the end, especially basically not playing anybody in that bowl game. But, they lost several coordinators to LSU specifically. And, they did bring in a Caden Green on the offensive line and a Williams Mary on the defensive line. And they've made some good acquisitions in the transfer portal. But I do think this is probably a game where Oklahoma comes in there and mollywops them by 35 points.
You're probably not wrong on that. I think so. For me, when it came to Missouri, it's all about them losing a lot of their defensive staff. They lost them to LSU. Now, that makes LSU dangerous because LSU was awful on defense last year. Now they're bringing in guys that made Missouri a really good defense. That's the one thing that's really hard to replicate. And, granted, you could say the same thing about Oklahoma, right? Bringing in Seth Littrell, even though Seth Littrell has like years of experience as an offensive coordinator, we've got his track record, right? Nick Foles was in the NFL for a reason, and he had Rob Gronkowski doing things at Arizona. Similar, same things at Indiana as well as with UNC. So, and his North Texas offenses were actually pretty potent. But again, you still have that same thing, that same question that you would have, for Missouri. And the fact that they lost so many people off their defensive staff, from the defensive coordinator down to the defensive line coach, I got a lot of questions. And I got to see if this stuff's going to be answered. Now, they brought in some good players. Caden Green's going to do very good for the offensive line. It looks like he's going to play guard there because they brought in another tackle.
Dominic Williams.
Well, they brought in another tackle, which looks like they're going to be their new left tackle, and Caden Green's going to play guard, unfortunately for him. And, I don't know what the defensive line is going to look like yet going into the season. And so for me, they're going to have a lot to prove this season. And their schedule is much more favorable in comparison to everybody else. But at the same time, as much as let me see conference-wise, they have Bama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is going to be a problem for them, and so is Bama. They go to Arkansas comes to them because they travel to Alabama, they travel to Mississippi State, travel to South Carolina, and they travel to Texas A&M. I think Bama and A&M are going to be problems for them. And with us, Auburn, and Arkansas coming to town, I think Auburn and us can pull out a win. I think this is the year where Auburn starts to get stuff together, but they'll still be too short. Missouri's a great target for them to take out. Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt. They better win that game. That's like cake for everybody. I feel so bad for Clark Lye because there ain't nothing he can do about that. But, Levy could give him some problem, Mississippi State. Do I think he does? No, but he can. I don't think he does, though. And Shane Beamer's coaching for his life right now, right?
Yeah.
Who's his quarterback?
Davis Bevel.
All right.
Listen, here it is. Offensive analyst Shane Beamer with the University of Oklahoma.
That's what I'm signing up for. I'm waiting for it. As soon as he gets fired, it's going to make sense.
He can be our OC after Seth Littrell gets a promotion.
Ooh, I don't know about that part, but yeah. Be nice to have him as an analyst.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have him as an analyst. Listen, I really liked Missouri this past season. I think they'll probably win 8 to 9 games this year. I really like the acquisition that they've made on the defensive side of the ball with Toriana Pride. But I think, again, Oklahoma is just leaps and bounds on a different level than Missouri. I don't think. And also, I'm pretty sure this staff's going to be a little salty about losing Williams Nwaneri. And I think Brent Venables is going to want to take that out on the field personally. So
I don't think so. I don't think this staff takes grudges and stuff like that in that capacity, right?
I need them to.
I think fans do. Yes, I totally agree. Understand why fans would want to. I think that they go in there and they were prepared to go, to work and do business regardless. Like they didn't care who was going to be out there or not, which to me makes sense too. Just the personality of who Brent Venables is, right? He just wants to win in general. He don't care who you are. And the other thing that a lot of people that seem to be doubters of what Oklahoma's doing fail to realize that this man did command a couple of defenses that won national championships against some of the top SEC schools out there. Well, school, which is Alabama. They beat them twice.
So what tickets do you think will be worth more? Alabama this year in Norman or Missouri next year in Norman?
Well, we ain't got Saban anymore, so that
I know, but you
I'm
know,
gonna
OU
think
fans like that's.
I think it's Missouri just because people are petty, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, to me personally, I think the Alabama tickets are way more valuable because it's Alabama. So it could be fun to see Alabama play.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited to see Alabama. I wish Nick Saban was still here. Was what I was really excited for. I was excited.
I want
Nick
to see
on the
Saban
sideline.
coach. I want to see Saban coach here. I've seen Saban coach twice, and it was an awesome experience to watch him coach. I was hoping that it would have been. I was hoping he was coming to Norman, but he'll probably come. Knowing him, he'll probably be part of the ESPN staff that comes here. And
Oh
gets to
yeah,
talk
because
about
game
it.
day will be here. Game day will be here.
It's a good chance for game day to be here. It all depends on what we look like that time of the year, because that is 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks before the season ends. So yeah, it's all going to depend on what we look like at that point.
So an 11-1 in Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure at that point they're playing in the SEC championship. 10-2.
Yes.
Not 100% sure if 10-2 Oklahoma is playing the SEC championship because Bama could be 10-2, or there could be some other factors there. I will say though, 10-2 Oklahoma in the playoffs for sure. I did say that. My prediction was Oklahoma gets in the playoffs. They play a first round game at home and they get past the first round. Probably for the first. This is the first time Oklahoma will ever win the first round of the playoffs. So I think that happens for them. I don't know what happens beyond that, but I'm pretty confident to make that prediction. So do you think Oklahoma gets the SEC championship game? What do you think it takes to get there? And do you think they win a playoff? Like, is this the year Oklahoma gets over that hurdle?
Man, well, with the way that the playoffs are set up this year, I think this is the year if Oklahoma can get to the SEC championship, which I think they will. They gave us the toughest schedule on purpose, right? You know, they want Oklahoma to prove themselves. We are the team that has to prove ourselves, right? And when we go out there and we prove ourselves, then people are gonna be like, oh darn, this is what we're dealing with. Didn't think that Oklahoma's gonna do that to us. Well, I anticipate that, like I said, Oklahoma's gonna go out there, prove that we belong, and actually make it happen. So the bigger question here is going to be,
I
And
don't know if I
Oklahoma-
want to go to the SEC championship game and play Georgia. I don't know if I want that.
I
snub
do.
here.
I 100% want every ounce of the smoke. I want all of it. I want Oklahoma to go and play against Georgia. That'll be so much fun. I got to see Georgia win out though, because Georgia schedule wise, they are, let me see, you got them traveling to Texas, Ole Miss, Kentucky, and Alabama this year. They ain't the easiest. Mark Stoops be always having Kentucky sneaky good, but I think Georgia runs down their throat and beats them. Even though Brock Vandagriff is there as their quarterback. Can Brock Vandagriff do something special for
they
Kentucky?
got Clemson to start the season too.
Yep, and they start season against Clemson. So they've got a lot. And now Clemson, of course, wants to, prove a point. Dabo has to prove that he can win elite games again, which is going to be work for him. But having Tennessee, Mississippi State, Florida, and Auburn, Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Auburn all come to the crib. And then, of course, the Florida game is their neutral site game, similar to us, the world's largest cocktail party. I'm curious to see if, I think that Ole Miss game is going to be potentially a challenge for Georgia, potentially. Doesn't mean that they'll lose it though. They're going down there to Texas though. I gotta give Texas props on this one. It's tough winning in Texas. The thing that
this
helps
was
Georgia,
perfect schedule for Texas because they've also got Formula One that weekend. So
that's actually
no
awful.
Georgia fans getting tickets to go to get a hotel room there.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the hard part is getting accommodations, and I think that may not be as bad close to campus based upon with the Formula One. But I'll say this though, the thing that kind of haunts Texas is that this is 1 week after playing us.
Mm-hmm. They're going to get beat up.
So yeah, it's going to be a physical game. They're going to care. Texas is going to care because we beat them in their best team with a team that everybody claims we shouldn't have beat them with. We beat them. They're going to have to try to regain the hat. And
I've said it. I don't think Texas wins more than 7 or 8 games this year.
I don't think you're wrong there.
I think they're going to have a pretty down year.
The thing that helps them, though, is that they got their quarterback back, right?
Yes,
Having your quarterback just kind of changes a lot of things because it'll be all based upon his decision making. Now, we got to ask our question, is going to be Texas fans going to lose their minds about it?
Yeah, listen, they're going to be calling for Arch as soon as Quinn starts to give him just a little bit of inkling that he might not be on the ball this year, because apparently Arch did pretty well in the spring. So
I really do hope that they hit him with the they want the sub. I really want that so bad.
All right. Well, Jay, appreciate you coming on and kind of talking about this, breaking it down a little bit. Where can people find not only your main channel, but your Sooner content at? Because I know you kind of got separate channels now.
Yeah, I put the recruiting stuff on its own separate. I kind of want to see how that will work. So you can find me Sooner or Later Sports for the OU recruiting. It's only recruiting stuff. So plan on growing that channel with like a whole bunch of updates and highlights from the high school recruits we're going after, just so we don't flood the main channel too much. But the main channel, of course, Unfair Sports, talking OU football. We'll add SEC and NCAA football on there as well. So, PG, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you guys coming on. And if you have made it this far into the video and you have not already, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, join the discussion. Give us your thoughts.